Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. I recently got married to my boyfriend of 6 years. We're both 27, and while things have been a little tough on us because of the COVID setting our careers back a little, we are figuring out everything together. My husband does not have the closest relationship with his family. He never told me any details as to why he is not close with them, but based on whatever bits and pieces I have understood, is that my husband and my sister-in-law have some issues between them that led to the in-laws being forced to take sides. And because both of them took sister-in-law's side, my husband has not been close with them ever since. If I can be honest, I was not bothered about it much, but as I am from a big family and my husband was invited to those events often because we had been together for so long, I would often notice that my husband would end up becoming quiet, sad and depressed after these events. When we tried to have a conversation about it, he never really opened up much, just told me that he wished he had a better family. I understood that he wanted a close relationship with his family or a better relationship with his family, but I also did not want to do things without his permission. Whenever I offered to reach out to his family on his behalf, he told me that he does not want to do things yet. He kept insisting that there would be a better time, and I never knew when that time would be. At one point, I was convinced that it would be at our wedding, but when we got married, it was a small ceremony to which our close friends and family were invited, and he did not invite anybody from his side. But I did get to meet with his parents and my sister-in-law. While our wedding ceremony was taking place, his parents and sister tried to come to the venue, which my husband had specifically warned against. When they did successfully enter the premises, they created a huge scene, painting my husband as the bad guy for never replying to messages, picking up calls, and coming to pay a visit while mother-in-law was going through cancer. My husband rigidly told them to leave and that they were not welcome there. While this was all happening, my sister-in-law was standing in a corner and watching everything unfold. When her eyes caught mine, she gave me a small shrug like, "What else are we supposed to do?" and then left with the parents once they were kicked out. The wedding went on without a hitch after that, and we were happy to be married despite the odds. When we were on our way to our honeymoon, I got a friend request notification on my phone, and it was my sister-in-law. It was a little weird, but I did not care much because we were family. I added her and forgot about it. Once we came back from the honeymoon, my husband and I were quite happily getting settled in our new house and our marital life. That's when sister-in-law popped back into my life. She messaged me and told me that she knows that I am from a big family, and she knows I understand the importance of the family that my husband does not. So she would be very happy if I could help fix the family. She also said in detail how my husband can be a bit childish, but if we both worked together, we would be able to fix everything in no time. I was stupid and I believed her. We started talking more or less regularly. She even came over to our house once or twice while my husband was out because she wanted to meet with me and I was not able to stay home due to working from home schedule and health issues. After one of these visits, sister-in-law asked me if she could have a copy of the keys to our house. It sounded like a strange request. When I asked her why she wanted those, she told me that she was worried about me and because I stay home the whole day working from home, if something happens to me while my husband is not home, having keys would help sister-in-law come in and help me out. While I understood that she meant the statement in a medical emergency way, I could not help but feel like it was a bit of a threat. I can't quite explain why, but her words made me feel creeped out. I politely refused her offer, informing her that if something does happen, I would call my husband. But as we spoke, I realized that my sister-in-law was not happy with my refusal. She cut the chat short and left in a hurry. Although she was smiling, her smile did not quite reach her eyes, which weirded me out. After that, I stopped having her over. Every time she wanted to come over, I would try to give excuses and have her not come over. But one day, that did not work at all. She came over and I was on high alert the entire time. She left after staying over for tea, and when she left, I felt so much better. But that feeling did not last for long when a few days later I could not find my house keys in the place where I usually keep them. Panic set in and I decided to go over to sister-in-law's place to get the keys back. In our chat, sister-in-law mentioned where she lived when she invited me over for tea, but at that time I was sick and I could not go. The moment my husband came home, I got into my car and drove over to her house. I knocked on the door and a man opened the door. I asked him if I could speak with my sister-in-law. The man politely told me that nobody in my sister-in-law's name lives in that house. I told him that I was given the address by my sister-in-law and showed him her picture. He looked at the picture and told me again that sister-in-law does not live there and I have the wrong address. That was incredibly suspicious. I messaged her casually asking her what her address is, and she told me the same address as before. By this time, I was completely panicking. I came home and tried my best to be my usual self, but I knew I was jittery. My husband noticed it straight away. For the past 2 days, he has been trying to ask me what is wrong and what has happened, but I have no idea how I will tell him about this whole situation, because I do not want him to be disappointed in me. But I know that I should. I keep wondering if I was TA for starting the whole communication with my sister-in-law, because if I had not done it, I would not have lost the keys this way. But I just wanted to help. I will tell my husband about the whole situation. I read everything that you all said, and I do agree that I was incredibly stupid for hiding things from him. I should have told him about it regardless. I know why you guys are calling me TA, and I also understand everyone who is calling me NTA. I will do the right thing tonight, do not worry, and I will update you guys accordingly. Thank you regardless of being genuine and showing me the error of my ways. So the conversation went better than expected. Once my husband was home from work, I told him that I had something to tell him. He looked relieved, and once we were both comfortable, I told him everything. I told him how his sister-in-law messaged me after our honeymoon and how she told me that I can mend the family by staying in touch with her and slowly allowing her and his parents back into his life. I told him that I did not mean to hide it from him or go against him, but that I was scared he was going to stop me from doing anything. Since he was constantly refusing to tell me what his issue was with his family, I thought that perhaps I could mend the relationship now because we are both 27. He listened to me saying everything without interrupting me, and once I was done, my husband told me that he was disappointed in me for hiding this thing from him for as long as I did. H told me that I should have asked him what the whole thing was, and he would have told me everything now that we are married. He did not feel comfortable telling me anything before we were married because he was not sure when his family would try and poison my heart against him. When I told him I could not quite follow along, he gave me the full details. My father-in-law is an extremely narcissistic and abusive man. He has always been that way, and he never cared much about anything else in his life except himself. My sister-in-law inherited that trait from father-in-law. She is a narcissistic and charming person who on the surface might seem like an extremely sympathetic and genuine human being, but in reality, she is a selfish person. My husband knew about it from the moment he became aware of the environment he was in. Mother-in-law refused to divorce father-in-law, and father-in-law refused to divorce mother-in-law because they did not want to go through with the court hassle. When sister-in-law's behavior got her in trouble at school, mother-in-law was worse. Sister-in-law became more and more aggressive, mean, and rude over years. When she started college, she got into a huge argument with mother-in-law and father-in-law because while they were paying for her college tuition, she was upset that they were saving money for my husband's college as well, instead of giving it to her to let her have some pocket change. At first, father-in-law and mother-in-law refused to give her any of that because she already had enough. But then sister-in-law told them how my husband can simply work his way through university as father-in-law did. And because he is a man, while sister-in-law herself is way too delicate to do those works. After that, my husband's college fund started to get depleted. My husband was not informed about this, and he just knew that there was money moved aside for him. When it was time for admissions, he learned about this whole thing, and when sister-in-law told him that he could just work his way through college, that is when my husband decided to go no contact with them. He started going NC from the moment he moved out, which was when he was 19. But the whole thing became pretty set in stone when my husband was 23. Hearing all of this made me realize how stupid I was for even allowing sister-in-law in the house. Husband also explained that over the years, there had been several times when mother-in-law had contacted him asking to borrow money, even though sister-in-law was seemingly well off. But that was when he learned from their cousin that sister-in-law was abusing substances. While she may not look like a drug user, she has been abusing substances for a while. That was when I connected the dots regarding the keys. My husband told me to call the locksmith ASAP and get the locks changed because we have no idea when my sister-in-law might try to get in. I blocked the contact and social media of my sister-in-law right then and there just so that she could not contact me anymore. We got the locks changed, as I mentioned in the last update. Once it was changed, I felt so much better about the whole ordeal. As my job requirements changed, I had to start going back to the office to work from the office every Wednesday and Friday, and one of those Fridays when I came home, I saw my husband was already home. Turns out that our neighbor, this lovely old lady, was out doing things in her garden when she saw a suspicious young lady trying to get into our house. The description of that lady matched my sister-in-law very well. The lady decided to call the cops on her, and the cops did manage to get her detained. My husband has decided not to press charges, but he has decided to apply for a restraining order to make sure of our safety. I could not have been stupider when it came to trusting anyone. I will go with NTA because you did want to help your husband, but you are bordering on YTA, OP. If you care about the well-being of your husband so much, then why don't you tell him about everything instead of hiding things from him? I am sure that it would hurt him more learning that you were hiding things from him than learning that you were talking with his son. YTA, OP. You are actively going against your husband's wishes to fill out your wishes, and you are hiding everything from him. He does not want to be in touch with his family. Why can you not respect that? I, male 71, and wife, Karen 78, female, leave for Florida in late October and live in Connecticut for the summer. Cara, my daughter, and her husband, Sean, live in Massachusetts. Cara is pregnant with their first in March. In September, my stepson gifted new floors to Cara and Sean for their kitchen. I offered to help with install. Their home is over 100 years old. I'm not a contractor or a carpenter, but I am good at home repairs. I was supposed to only install the floors, but during demo, I encouraged them to demo some cabinets so the flooring laid down better. I said I would help with prep on weekends and come back from Florida in November to assemble new cabinets and install them. They agreed. They are new homeowners and not handy, but were eager to work. The walls ended up being covered in rotting horsehair plaster, which was a surprise. When the weekend ended, there was no stove hookup, floors were 10% installed, and it was a bit of a mess. I left it to them to plaster the walls that week, and I'd come next weekend. By Tuesday, Cara and Sean called in a panic, saying the plaster was a disaster and that Cara was afraid of the stress of her pregnancy. I told them to wait. Cara told me she felt misled and that the project spiraled out of control and asked me to take ownership, not financial, for my hand in their issues. I told them they made their choice to demo and it's not my house. They paid me for my help and hired a contractor. They said I'm not able to commit to a project of this size. I work full-time and help my stepson with his flip, and didn't believe I would come back to help after leaving for Florida, and Cara is uncomfortable with working during pregnancy, all to which I disagreed. I was hurt they fired me and still am. It's been weird since. I have not reached out to ask about the kitchen or the baby, though They provided scattered updates on the baby, and Karen asked about the baby a few times. Recently, Cara reached out saying this has been terrible. They had to pull permits from the town. They haven't had a stove or sink in months. Cara said she feels I don't care about her health and our grandchild as I have not checked in, that I didn't take ownership. I laughed and told her I would have had it all done by now. She sent a text telling Karen and I not to speak to her and that she is upset. Karen RSVP'd no to Cara's shower in January and cancelled our trip without telling them. Sean reached out asking us to reconsider, saying they will only become parents once and that Cara was 6.5 months pregnant and didn't mean what she said. He offered to pay for our tickets to come. Karen and I have been firm on our stance, however. We told them to let us know well in advance and we can visit in March before or after the baby. Cara is devastated, but Karen and I were only trying to accommodate her wishes. I think I may be the a-hole for canceling my trip knowing Cara is stressed and pregnant, so am I the a-hole? YTA on so many levels. First, as you said, you are not a contractor or carpenter, but are good with home repairs. You encourage them to demo their kitchen, only install 10% of the floors before leaving? Cara has every right to be upset, and she's not wrong. You made a mess of their house and then backpedaled by basically saying, oh, well, not my problem. I personally wouldn't want anything to do with you, but they want you at their baby shower. Go and apologize. I have 3 kids. My husband and I worked hard to raise them and get them to be productive adults, and they are. I'm proud of all 3. They were great kids and have become pretty good adults, if I do say so myself. When my oldest daughter married a widower who already had a 2-year-old child, my husband and I put money into an education fund. We did the same for every biological grandchild. We know a little about investing and compound interest. By starting early, we can invest a little bit each month, and by the time they graduate high school, we are able to provide each one with enough money for a good start in life. My oldest grandchild just graduated from high school. We were able to let them know that after scholarships and everything were taken into account, they would be graduating debt-free. We don't give any of them the money. We pay for tuition and fees and such. We learned our lesson from our youngest, our only son. We gave him the money like we had for his 2 older sisters. He had scholarships as well, but he blew through the money we gave him and chose to become a tradesperson instead. He does very well and now owns his own successful business. He was married, but it didn't work out. We have 2 grandkids from that marriage. Last year, he married a very nice woman who has a 15-year-old son. She had him very young, and it caused a rift in her family. None of them came to the wedding. My son approached us about money for his stepson's education. After husband and I discussed it, we said that we could afford to give him $5,000 to help out, but that was it. My son is very disappointed. He knows that all my other grandkids have enough money in their accounts to pay for at least 2.5 years of in-state tuition and expenses. He makes good money, but he also likes to spend it on toys and vacations. I don't think that him or my daughter-in-law have anything put away for his stepson. That is why we offered the $5,000. My son and his wife are planning ahead for when he graduates in June, and they are still complaining that I'm treating him different from our other grandkids. I know that we are, but we didn't have almost 2 decades to save for him. That $5,000 came out of my fund for when I need to replace my car. My son and daughter-in-law are not spending their money on toys and vacations. I may have put that badly. The reason that my son doesn't have a lot of savings to pay for his son's education is because of how he chose to spend his money prior to getting married. I hope that is clear now. I have talked to my husband and son. My son wants me to take money from all the accounts and make one for his stepson. We counter-offered to split the 2 accounts we have for his biological children into 3 and split the $5,000 into them. And we will continue to contribute the accounts until they get used. He seems unhappy with that option. NTA, You didn't have a 15-year head start to save for this grandchild the way you did for others. He can be upset that his kid won't have the same head start, but he can't be mad at you for not being able to offer more. Now it's up to him to provide.